What's going on, everybody? Matt Modi here on my solo YouTube channel, Jedi Modi Sports Betting. Shout out to Star Wars. In this video, we're going to be talking about profitable March Madness betting strategies. If I were to rank my favorite sports times of the year, March Madness, without a doubt, would be number one. That's not a hot take. I'm sure I'm not alone in that sentence. So March Madness is fun. Another way to have fun with March Madness is to make money betting on it. So in this video, like I said, I'm going to go over the best March Madness betting strategies. Right off the bat, before I get started, there's one thing that you're going to want to do regardless of any betting strategy, and that is you're just going to want to line shop. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. You want to make sure that you're always getting the best odds, no matter what strategy I'm talking about. If you identify a team that you want to back because of this strategy, you have to make sure you're line shopping and getting the best odds. Like, I'm going to pick a random game here. Kent State versus Eastern Michigan. Let's look at how the spreads are. So like, if you wanted to bet on Kent State, you would want to make sure that you're obviously getting the best odds. Like, we see the spread range from minus 17 at minus 110 odds up to minus 18 at minus 107 odds. So you're only getting 3 cents of juice better odds, and you're sacrificing a point. That's not a profitable betting strategy in the long run. So you're going to want to make sure, no matter what you're doing, no matter what team you are backing, you're going to want to make sure that you are line shopping and getting the best odds. So all you need to do, just go to oddsjam.com, sports, college basketball. You can line shop for completely free. Just make sure that you have an account made, and then you can look into these odds and you can line shop for completely free. So that's the most important thing. That's not obviously a strategy, but when you are when you're going through these strategies and you identify a team that you want to make sure that you're betting on due to the strategy, line shop, get the best odds. So let's get into it. Strategy number one. This is my favorite. I actually do this in a bunch of different sports, not just March Madness, but you want to bet a unit on the moneyline underdog of every single team in the first 2 rounds of March Madness. Only the first 2 rounds. So basically the first weekend of March Madness, bet the moneyline underdogs of every single team. I can assure you it will be profitable. And then, of course, make sure that you are line shopping to get the best odds. So like, if you wanted to bet on Marist as the underdog, you could get them at plus 116 on PlayUp as the best odds. But number one, when it comes to March Madness, underdogs, the upsets, the Cinderella runs are obviously the most fun thing, the most memorable thing when it comes to March Madness. So betting a small amount, a unit, on the moneyline underdog of every team, it's fun. It's your rooting interest for the underdogs. It's just a fun thing to do. And at the end of the day, yes, sports betting should be profitable, should also be fun. And betting on the moneyline underdogs of every single, the moneyline of every single underdog, it is in fact profitable. I can assure you that. Last year, the biggest upset, we had a 15 seed St. Peter's beating Kentucky in the first round. We also had the year before that, we had Ohio State as the number 2 seed losing. Who could remember, or who could forget when UVA lost as the 1 seed? Every single year, there are going to be at least one massive upset. And if you can get one massive upset, that funds like 90% of the units. Like, St. Peter's was like plus 1,100 odds. That's an 11 unit win just from one team. You don't need that many underdogs to win once you get that main one. We also had Richmond beat Iowa in a big upset in the second round of the tournament. 8-seeded UNC, who ended up obviously making it all the way to the finals, beat the reigning champ of Baylor in the second round, the round of 32. So upsets happen all the time. So strategy number one, bet one unit on the money line of every single underdog in the first 2 rounds. I can assure you, profitable betting venture. So after that, after you're betting a unit on every single moneyline underdog, you want to go a step further and you want to identify underdogs that actually are likely to win, that you think have an edge in terms of winning. So you're putting one unit on every single underdog, and then you're increasing your unit size a little bit on specific certain underdogs. And obviously choosing what underdogs are likely to win is easier said than done. And there's a couple different strategies that you can go through when it comes to that. And this isn't all in one category. It kind of goes along with the different the different strategies. But the upset that happens the most frequently, and everybody knows this, so this isn't a secret or anything, but the 12 and 5 seed, 12 beating the 5 and 13 beating the 4 seed. Those are the most common seeds that upset the higher seed. The reason why, number one, what the teams that get the 12 and 13 seed, they're normally a mid-major team, a lower level team like your Richmonds, like your Lehighs, like your LaSalle, that have a really good team that won their division, right? They won their conference, but because of the lower level of competition, they're not given a high seed. You know, not every year Wichita State is going to get a 1 seed. Before Wichita State was a nationally known team, they were an 8 seed that made that run. So the 12 and 13 seeds are generally actually good teams that won their conference, but that are getting seeded lower because of the level of competition. But the teams they are matched up against, more often than not, are teams from a Power 5 conference like your ACC, your SEC, your Big 10, your Big 12, your Pac-12, that had bad years, but because of their level of competition, they still made the tournament and were still given a high seed. So like we've seen Arizona in the past when they had DeAndre Ayton, lost in the first round as a 4 seed. They didn't really deserve to be there, but because they had a strong strength of schedule, they had very high name value players, very nationally recognized name players like DeAndre Ayton, who went in the first round. They were given a higher seed. The same thing happened when Kansas had Joel Embiid and Andrew Wiggins. They were given a high seed despite being inconsistent throughout the year. They got upset early. Now, obviously, Embiid was hurt in that NCAA tournament run, but still, that still happened. So when you want to identify teams or underdogs that are likely to win, you want to start with the 12 and 13 seeds. The next strategy, and this isn't necessarily specific to picking underdogs, it's just picking teams that you think have a chance to go far. You want to look at teams that have relatively neutral home-road splits, meaning you want to fade teams that have very positive road or home splits, and they have really bad road splits. Basically, if I could confirm it even further, you want to fade teams that are bad on the road. The logic here is pretty simple. It's rare that in the NCAA tournament in March Madness, a team gets some sort of home court advantage. Sometimes it'll happen where like UNC will play in North Carolina or something like that, but that's rare. So teams that perform significantly better at home are generally teams that you want to fade in March Madness, right? Again, you're playing on neutral court in March Madness, and we've seen a ton of times teams can get up playing in front of their home crowd, but just are unable to replicate that energy even on a neutral court, let alone a road game. And you would think that when it comes to March Madness, they'd be able to get that level of energy up. But we've seen it time and time again. Teams that have very, very skewed home road splits do not perform well in March Madness. So again, that's not specific to specifically to underdogs. There can be favorites too that are better on a neutral court going against a team that is better at home, and you want to back that favorite. You know what I mean? So it's not just for underdogs. It works for favorites too. Next up, and again, this can help you identify underdogs, but it can also work with backing a favorite. Experience matters when it comes to college basketball and when it comes to March Madness. In the one and done era, there's only been 2 teams that were led by freshmen that won the national championship. It was Kentucky with Anthony Davis. It was Duke when they had Justice Winslow, Jahlil Okafor, Tyus Jones, Grayson Allen. Really good Duke team. More often than not, experience matters when it comes to college basketball. And just look, again, at the most recent winners of the tournament. Baylor, led by mostly, they had a couple good freshmen, led by mostly juniors or sophomores and juniors. So some experience. This past year, Kansas won. Ochai Agbaji, senior. UNC wasn't really led by any strong freshmen. The team that they beat, led by freshmen. Paolo Banchero. UVA, obviously a very experienced senior-led team with Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome. Both of Villanova's championship teams were not really led by freshmen. When UNC ended up winning, that whole team that lost in the championship the year before came back. Joel Berry, Justin Jackson, Theo Pinson. You can understand the logic of falling in love with the freshman-led Kentucky teams or Duke teams that are just absolutely riddled with talent. But it's rare that those teams actually win in March Madness and go far. Even probably the best team in terms of talent that we've ever seen assembled in college basketball. Well, there's 2. The Kentucky year when the Harrison twins came back with Karl Anthony Towns, lost to the experienced Wisconsin team led by Sam Decker and Frank Kaminsky. And then the Zion Williamson year at Duke, when they had Zion, they had the top 3 recruits, Zion, RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish. They didn't even make it to the Elite Four. They lost to Michigan State, a senior-led team led by Tom Izzo. So experience matters when it comes to March Madness. And this last one, and this one is admittedly a little bit harder to identify, takes a little bit more research, but teams that play some sort of unique style generally go farther in the tournament than they really should. We think about those Syracuse teams. Teams in the ACC are used to seeing the Syracuse zone. So it's nothing new to them. So when they play Syracuse, they know they have a strategy. They know how to play it. But how many times do we remember a bad, lower-seeded Syracuse team make a run to in March Madness with Jim Boeheim because they're playing teams that aren't used to the 2-3 zone. ACC teams are. Most teams aren't. Sometimes you can use that to make a run in the NCAA tournament. Another thing, and this was kind of when VCU kept making their runs in the tournament, they played with Shaka Smart at an extremely fast pace. They played almost like an NBA level of pace, which, again, teams in their conference were used to, so knew how to defend it. Teams in March Madness that weren't used to seeing them were not. So again, this one is a little bit harder to quantify, a little bit harder to research, but if there are teams that notoriously play some sort of extreme style, generally those teams can make some noise in the NCAA tournament because they're playing teams that aren't used to it. But that's going to be it. Those are the best, most profitable college basketball March Madness betting strategies. Of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, you want to start with line shopping. That's the most important thing, confirming, consistently getting the best odds. And then from there, bet 1 unit on the money line of every single underdog in the first 2 rounds. Identify favorites that are on upset alert, underdogs that have a chance of winning. And you want to specifically want to identify the 12 and 13 seeds as those potential underdogs that could win. Experience matters in March Madness, so you want to kind of gravitate towards teams that aren't led by freshmen. Home road splits also matter in March Madness, so you want to fade teams that don't perform well on the road. And then, of course, you want to identify teams that play some sort of extreme style, like Syracuse's zone. Back in the day, VCU's fast-paced offense. And that's going to be it. So hopefully this video was helpful. If you're still watching, should have mentioned this at the beginning, but would appreciate it if you could like, comment, and subscribe. Other than that, again, I appreciate everybody watching, and hopefully we're all making money in March Madness. Have a good one.